where people pointed out maybe things that we want to try and do a little better too, which is good. Last meeting when we met, we let any residents that were joining us open the floor and provide thoughts on what might be on their mind. So if it's okay with council, I'd like to open the meeting by letting any citizens that have joined us let us know if there's a specific thing, or if they're just saying hello and listening in, that's good too. We did post an agenda similar to last week. You'll see me look a little bit to the left from time to time because I've got another monitor that has the agenda on it, so I can see all of your faces here in front of me. But we did post an agenda. The format of this meeting is similar to the format of last meeting, where item number 1 is just an open discussion. People can bring up whatever topics on their mind first or most. But if it's okay, Justin, I'd like to ask for your help. I see we have Ryan and Mr. McCarter, Cole Miller, Mr. Ross, some other names, and I don't know that I recognize every cell phone or every phone number that's there, but Sanam is here. Maybe we can let the residents speak first and let us know if there's something we should be talking about or thinking about. And thank you for joining us. Mr. Ross, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah. Let's see here.
And if you're just listening in, there's no pressure either. I'm just want to give you the opportunity to respect your time as well. So.
Oh, Mr. Ross muted himself.
Oh, can you unmute yourself, Mr. Ross? Or try it one more time, please?
Hi.
There he is.
Good
morning.
Yeah, I'm a relatively new resident and I'm just listening in, so thanks.
Okay,
Are you
great.
the gentleman who joined Sean? Is this the gentleman that came to elections for the testing of election equipment? Without a
I'm
mask
not.
on, I couldn't tell what the person looked like. Not you?
No, that's not
All
me.
right.
Mr. Ross, where do you live, if you don't mind us asking?
I live in Huron Commons.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I see, Mr.
Ryan or Mr. McCarter or Cole, anybody, maybe we can one at a time. Justin, why don't you just go around and unmute one at a time so we give everybody a chance to.
I'll defer to Mr. McCarger and Mr. Miller first, since I was talking a bunch in forum.
Okay.
Thanks. Sound check. Sean, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Mr. McCarter, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for having this forum. So first, just a quick comment about the framework for this meeting and for the process as you laid it out. As usual, and as I have said in the past, this to me represents quality work on the part of the staff and direction and work on the part of the council. It's a well-organized framework, builds on the 2021 model, and it's functional, it's informative, 2 thumbs up. As I reviewed the packet, I want to highlight up front here something that I think is really important, and then I'm going to make a few substantive comments for the goal setting process as well. Jamie, I'm going to address these comments directly to you because you have you got a 24-page chunk in the packet, which represents a huge amount of work. There's well, I mean, you may be able to do it very quickly, but it's lots of work, and I respect that. You've offered your survey and statistical background for use by the city. And I want to say to you directly, to me, what you put in the packet does not represent a viable advertisement for your services. I think there's a fundamental failure in there to distinguish between qualitative and quantitative data and to show what is valid and useful, including sample size, your survey methodology, and how the information is to be used. It also, to me, and more concerningly, it demonstrates a lack of coordination and teamwork with your peers there that's necessary for being an effective council person. And I raise that as a quick flag, knowing that you're new on the council. Many of the narrative comments in that document are mean-spirited or worse. And broadcasting them now through your new role on the council undermines, through false repetition, the legitimacy of votes that have already been cast, decisions that have already been made. It sounds familiar for some reason. I think I've run into that in a national context. So continuing to repeat this kind of stuff just only undermines us going forward. So to the council, I would say, please don't let that document suck the oxygen out of the room of the process. Don't let it hijack a good process, which works from that excellent baseline, because it risks generating a lot more work to respond to the outright falsehoods and the accusations and the falsely framed input that is reflected in that document than it justifies. And that takes away from the good process you've got rather than adding to it. It is a net negative, not a net positive. Jamie, you now represent me as well as the rest of the community. Communication is a two-way street here. So you have a joint responsibility, as does everybody on the council, to move the entire community forward. So I would call on you right now, halt the falsehoods, contribute to the correction of misinformation, even at a basic level. There's no need to fill a document with narrative comments that are just outright not correct or not useful within our framework. For example, the simple confusion between the role of the school board and the role of the city council. It's just not useful. It's not helpful. So with that, I'm gonna move quickly to some comments about within the document itself. Under the public works safety section, under disaster preparedness, because I think this is probably the best place to put it. COVID. The timeline of the COVID pandemic now clearly is going to go through 2021 and beyond. Most of the people who are visible on this call right now are not going to get vaccinated until August of maybe through August of 2021. And any kind of immunity and return to normal life is going to fall outside of the boundary of this coming year in a phased process into 2022 and further. So I think recognizing that in the financial decisions, the policy decisions, the actions in this document is important. Of course, we didn't know it was there, going to be there in the formation of the 2021 document. But going forward now, I think that's got to be a huge priority. It's got to be a strategic priority. So examples of that might play out in terms of goals and objectives and actions would be, for example, coordinating with the County Public Health Department on the vaccine rollout, with the County Public Health Department and our health providers, because particularly with the concern often expressed here about seniors, how do we get in this coming year a rollout of the vaccine where we help make that effective? Coordinate policy with the school board. This is a situation where the decisions that the school board makes on the return to school, done within the framework of the State Board of Education, the governor's directives, and the County Public Health Department, are integrated. They're very, very meshed with what's happening in the community in terms of how we open the economic activity in our community. And how do we balance that with public health? See above, and seniors and vaccinations, et cetera. So the coordination of policy between the two units, recognizing that they are separate entities with separate responsibilities. Nevertheless, COVID to me is priority number one strategically for this coming year plus. So that coordination policy would be important. Those are just two examples. I'm sure you can brainstorm more. From the point of view of the goals document, please put COVID in there under disaster preparedness or wherever you want to put it, but put it in there as a strategic priority for this coming year plus. Next, settle the fire station issue. This has been such a polarizing issue. I think it's strategic for the city. It's been a high priority in conversation in the council. It's been a polarizing issue for the community for a very long time. So within the context of the goals document, I would say it's time to put a deadline on that goal for the decision. I know the planning process is in the document. I know the planning process and decision-making is chugging its way around, but I think it's time to call a question on that issue. And I'm not saying you call it for option A or option B. I think what I'm saying is call it for finding a solution. Find the space in the middle that is going to be the solution that everyone in the council, if we can pull it off, agrees to. If not, let's get it to a vote and decide it and go by majority. Obviously, consensus is desirable, but I think we need to move it. You've got skills in the council, but if you hit a logjam on the council because it still remains too polarized, get a facilitator. Solicit the services of the facilitator, bring them in, and let's get this decided one way or the other. The third suggestion I have is a new one. I didn't know where to put it. I looked for where to put it in the document. I believe that I would advocate for the council to consider and pursue ranked choice voting for membership on the council. I think it is incorrect to say that the top vote getter in an election like the one we just had has a mandate from the populace in terms of the policy or the opposition or support for different members that is indicated by the narrative comments that came along with Jamie's thing, for example. I think that's blatantly untrue. When you got 6 members and you vote for 3. So I think if your objective is let's get the will of the people, the electoral will of the people in place. Ranked choice voting is more complicated. It's more difficult to understand, but it also brings about better decisions in terms of who gets elected, in terms of what are the real preferences of the community. If you got 6 people running, I mean, I don't need to go into that. You understand what I mean. Pursue ranked choice voting as a way to fill the council seats. Lastly, because I don't want to suck up all the oxygen in the room myself here, but I want to return to that top thing. In this community, as the approaching 3 decades that I've been in this community, I've never seen the council and the committees and the commissions and the connected people and the staff working at as high a level as I do right now. Excellent, thumbs up stuff. That deserves reinforcement, not kneecapping. Otherwise, we risk 2 very undesirable outcomes. One is people who are reluctant to step forward to serve, to volunteer for the volunteer commissions, and to serve to run for the council. Why would I want to run for council if I'm just going to get this crap thrown at me from a very small portion of the population of the city, but very vocal, and by repetition and repetition and repetition, all of a sudden I'm immoral. Put myself up for that. That's a very, very poor outcome. Okay, so you guys are doing a great job, and with the tiny asterisk on this that goes to a 2 or 3 lines that most of you probably didn't even notice in the packet. I believe strongly that I am referenced in one of those narrative comments for being the author of something during the election that was in opposition to you, Jamie. And it refers to me as a city official. I'm flattered because I think the city officials are so good. I'm not a city official, haven't been a city official. I'm just a citizen. And the fact that I come on these things and I make comments is because I care, because I've been here, lived here for so long. I have connections all through the community. And unlike some of the comments in there, I there's silence that I like. There's quiet in the community. But what I really love is the fact that I can sit on my front doorstep now and have a continuous parade of people going by, walking their dogs, waving, saying, "Hi, Jim," entering into conversation. And a lot of that conversation is about what's good for the community. And a lot of that conversation is direct and acknowledged and named. It's not anonymous. It's named. And it's also not reporting on overheard comments in the Dexter Pub dining tent. I don't like the idea of reporting as data the overheard conversations of diners in outside tents at the Dexter Pub. That to me is not valid statistics or valid survey gathering or valid input to decision-making by this body. Done. I'll mute myself. Thank you again.
Thank you for attending and for your comments, Mr. McCarter.
I'll
let
interject
me-
briefly just to say that like maybe they meant that you may not be an official, but you're certainly an institution.
Thanks, Ryan. I see Steve and Catherine Becker also joined us. Any comments to make, Steve or Catherine? Justin, maybe you can help. I don't know if you have to give them access.
I am really bad at speaking in these meetings, so no, I'm. I
Okay.
agree with everything Jim McCarter said.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Okay. Thanks for joining us this morning. Steve?
Hi, I'm also sitting in to watch and respond, but I also support actually what, as I listen to Jim right now, thanking him for what he's just said. But we're here together, Catherine and I, and we like being in Dexter, and we like to participate. Speaking for myself, just calm level and watch how things unfold. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that. Cole, anything you want to say today? Good morning.
Morning. I've got a noise in the background because the other meeting won't mute completely, so apologies. It'll be brief. I would just say that in my experience working with council's been very approachable and very willing to take suggestions and hear opinions, and willing to thoughtfully respond to them with consideration. Things don't necessarily go fast on council, and so it's not like somebody's getting their opinion shunted away or railroaded. And there's a difference between an imperfect process and a sinister and secretive process. And I think people selling as illegitimate a perfectly normal process in some of these comments is disturbing for the obvious reasons that we can cycle back in our memories all of 10 days. As far as the operation of council, I would like to see some sort of institutional communication with the schools. I know there's sort of an as needed basis communication as things come up. But it seems like the schools are kind of the center of gravity for a lot of, I'm going to try and cover the mic better. The schools are a big center of gravity for the community and what people think of as Dexter, and so some unity of purpose, or in the places where we overlap as essentially governments, and school is a huge budget having organization that has longer reach, is more what people think of when they think of Dexter, the exterior community as well. And it just so happens that right now our city council and city and school board meetings are even on the same day, that if somebody wanted to participate in both processes, they couldn't live. And it would really be great for some holistic thinking of how people see the city as far as a larger thing. And maybe there should be weekly check-ins, even if there's nothing, just to say what was on your schedule, what were some of the things that became new for you this week. It's a constant theme. I wish I was more of a community organizer because I think buses and public transportation is an under-considered, and maybe with Mr. Carson no longer on the board, it doesn't have as vocal a voice. But that a lot of the issues with traffic that people complain about, with road conditions that people complain about, with just navigating through the city, people just don't understand kind of how you can manage these things and take a more longer term view, that it's not immediately putting in roads or traffic lights or necessarily bypasses, all those sort of things, that there's different ways to spend the money that can accomplish the same goals, even though it doesn't look directly connected all the time. So yeah, as somebody who has recorded the meetings, I obviously believe that it's bad that we still run on a system that sort of would look similar to somebody who still had a corded phone 30 years ago. That there's certain things that, barring what the pandemic has made us do, putting things online. But Dexter is also still a pretty traditional city in a lot of ways, and a lot of the communication could be done at our population levels with mailers, with emails, or going door to door to a more representative population. And don't be cowed by the idea that you need to have some fancy software to communicate with the citizens, or to get more than 8 Dexter people to give you their opinion. That might just be friends or associates, or heard about it through a particular person's Facebook page instead of, and then that's something that the council could have done. They could have just reached out through Facebook initially. Anyway, happy to see council setting some goals, and we'll maybe have more at the end.
Great, thanks for joining us, Cole. I think your comment about the school board and the city's meetings overlapping is an interesting one. When we were trying to get an easement from the schools and work with them to get the new trail on their property, I had to miss a council meeting to go talk to the school board at their meeting. And so your point resonates with me, at least. Very, very good. Thanks for your comments. Who's next here? Let's going along. Amy? Is there an Amy Osinski? Am I saying that correctly?
Yep, she's from the newspaper.
Okay, so maybe she doesn't have anything to say, but oh, good, Justin.
No, nothing to contribute right now. Just
All right.
listening.
Thanks for listening in, Amy. Appreciate it.
Ryan has his hand up.
Oh, okay, let me go back up. Ryan, Justin, can you unmute Ryan, please?
Hi, Ryan. Sorry, my wife's grinding coffee right now. Let me push my door up. Good morning. I, like Jim, wanted to come in and both applaud council for this goal setting effort. Thank you for making this open and available to us. It's a great help, and I appreciate being able to read through the material ahead of time. I have a few different points that I want to hit, but I'm going to start from I think the least controversial to the most. For student members of the council, Alex, Bella, I greatly value your participation in this process. And I've actually been really happy with what you all have submitted for both this and for other projects. My hope is that student representatives in some form or fashion continue. I think that one of the things that's clear from both recent national events and also, frankly, from the survey results is that we need an influx of civic education. We need a lot of folks to understand how cities and municipalities actually work and function. And I think some of the best ways to do that is to empower our youth to take part, to do those things. And also because, if, like many communities, I think that one of the goals is to be able to be a place that folks want to come back to after they leave for college, to come back and bring their families and can continue on. And one of the ways to help build those roots is to encourage civic engagement from young folks. So I applaud you all for your attendance and care and study for the council representatives. I think that you all have done a really good service for all future students who come into this position, because you took it seriously. You submitted real feedback, and you've affected real change. So I just wanted to say, congratulations for that effort. Thank you. It is recognized by your peers here in the city. The second thing from the goal setting that I want to second is, like, I looked through a lot of the different goals from 2020 to 2021. And I feel very, very strongly that, like, I feel like the city is going in a good direction. I like a lot of the goals here. I think that they're reflective of the conversations I've had with neighbors, of the discussions we've had on council, and of the continued commitment to transparency and openness that council members have espoused in the years since I've been here. I've been here about 7 years now. I think that there's one of the things I wanted to highlight was walkability. I think it's definitely worth looking at scoring our walkability, in part because I think it's one of the strong draws of Dexter is depending on where you live, you have various, incredible features within walking distance. And it's that walkability actually that I think contributes to some of the benefits of providing a diversity of housing stock inside of Dexter. Because one of the things that stops many communities from being able to make affordable housing and supportive housing systems work is, lack of infrastructure around public transportation, lack of walkability in communities, people having to make really long commutes to get places. And one of the reasons why I was initially excited about the Hilltop View Avalon announcement way back in 2019, 2018, was that our school system is so walkable, and so you could conceivably raise a child from pre-K to 18 and be within walkable schools all the time. That's a miracle for public planning. I think it's truly a gem. So I think the walkability will also serve as as a way to show us even more ways to improve, and ways to improve valid concerns about traffic safety and pedestrian safety, bike safety, considering all the trails and connections that we have, between here and Ann Arbor and Chelsea and further out. And I think that will help us be able to understand what kinds of things we should be focusing on, what will have the most impact, and let us, move accordingly, and hopefully potentially serve as another draw for folks to come to our beautiful city. Lastly, I kind of want to dig into the survey results. I share pretty much all of Mr. McCarger's concerns. I'm going to add that I was personally hurt by reading some of this. I don't necessarily know what positive benefit comes from publishing anonymous, frankly, vaguely defamatory information about city residents, city officials, city council members. I am a firm believer that folks who are elected to office, part of that job is to hear criticism. I think that that's perfectly fine. However, when the criticism starts crossing over from people who are elected to people who are just doing their jobs, and people who are doing their jobs, with a normal expectation of community engagement, with a normal expectation of privacy, having those kind of things, bandied about, accusations of being immoral or untoward, or just really painful. There's a number of these comments that reference Detroit. I'm a Detroit native. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. Almost all the time when I see Detroit brought up in a pejorative manner like that, it comes as a sort of dog whistle. It's a we are not like them, and it's defining them as Detroiters, the blackest city in the United States, as something that's an other, and something that is not part of our community. Well, I think that one of the things that I think is strong about our community is that I have felt welcome. I haven't run around fearing for my life in the past week, like a lot of places in Michigan are seeing. I think that our community is compassionate. I think that the majority of our community wants to see the community grow. However, I don't think that that's compatible with this continued intent on preserving an imagined present of, a stereotypical American small town that has not existed in Dexter for a very long time. And I think that some of those debates and things about, who we are as a place, are not the kind of things that should also leak into personal attacks or go into trying to override every decision by our leaders. I do think that I would ask for Councilmember Griffin and also for all of council to think about the impact of efforts like this, as well as the intention. The intention may have been to bring more, community voices that didn't participate in, let's see, any of the 14, 15 council meetings that discussed the Avalon Housing Faith in Action Project. That did not attend any of the 3 or 4 open meetings from both of the organizations in question, that didn't attend the open house, that didn't attend the site plan meetings, that didn't attend all of those discussions that I've witnessed for the past 2.5 years. For those people who didn't do any of those, to contribute, that intention, I think, is somewhat valid. However, the impact is that there's a public document on the Dexter website that is defaming the people who run Dexter and calling the people who run our beautiful city corrupt and saying that they need to be cleaned out of office. People talking, some of these dog whistles about how they don't want quote unquote Detroit style corruption or other things like that are things that are going to be searchable and visible to people who want to come to our community. Now, the intention may have been one thing, but the impact is as someone who's looking for a home, someone who's looking for a compassionate community to live in, someone who's looking for a place that might be welcome to, increased diversity, to folks from different income ranges, may see this and feel unwelcome and feel unloved and unwelcome by a community that, frankly, I think would actually welcome them in the aggregate. And so that impact can be very disparate. I encourage us to be careful about how we decide to use anonymized data in public records, because there's so little that can be verified here. I would recommend that if we do wish to have more citizen participation, that it be done across multiple forums, that there be transparency about which groups have received and will receive communications about surveys and things, that it go through normal city council processes, which frankly get to us, in my twice a week mailer from Justin, in my, in the mailer we get in our emails, on the website, on the Facebook page. There's so many methods of communication, and I didn't see this survey come out. I don't know who this survey went to. I don't know anybody who knew about the survey until I saw it in the packet. And I don't think that my personal opinion on that is representative, and say that if I didn't hear about it, nobody heard about it. But I think that it highlights the fact that, one individual or 8 individuals, 0.0016% of the population don't necessarily offer a mandate to, overturn all of our planning and all of the goals that this community has been working towards. Providing affordable housing and housing at multiple income points is still a goal on this list. I am happy and excited for the city to continue working towards this goal. I don't think that adopting things that try to work at cross purposes with the stated and accepted goals of the council are going to be very fruitful and are going to waste a lot of staff, citizen, and council member time. And lastly, I just want you all to know that we do have faith in our officials. We want you to succeed. We want you to continue to serve us well, and we thank you for all of your efforts in keeping us informed and making us a strong electorate. I will second my thought earlier of, we clearly need some additional civic education, especially around what the city of Dexter is and what the community that colloquially refers to itself as Dexter is, because a lot of these concerns are things that frankly aren't even in our 1.5 square miles. I don't think that as Zach mentioned in the Dexter Forum, I don't think that if someone from the city showed up to the Dexter United Methodist Church and said we're laying sidewalk, I'm pretty sure that someone would call the sheriff, because that's not really something we're allowed to do. And I think that the more people can understand and know about what council is supposed to do and what council has done, then we can stop with the pejoratives about how people may feel ambushed, or people may feel that there hasn't been transparency when there are years of records of everything that council does, when all these meetings have been available on Zoom for the past 10 months. And when council members have been available and approachable to be able to talk about any particular issue that I've come up with in 7 years. So thank you all. I'm sorry for being a little long-winded, but I and others are here because we're passionate about where we live. We wanted to continue to show the compassionate character that drew us here, and to note that some of the pejoratives that appear in the survey do not represent the opinions of all Dexterites, and that your work is appreciated and valued. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, who have I not called on? I don't know if I recognize the phone number 780-6509. Is that a resident that would like to speak? Or is that Zach? No.
I think I'm linked up with my image now.
Okay, great. Okay, got it. Thanks, Zach.
That's
there's
the
one.
number to unmute.
Okay, there's one for elections. Don't know if that person wants to speak.
It's me, Brenda. I'm just listening in.
Gotcha. Thanks, Brenda.
I would have plenty to say, but it might take too long.
Thanks for joining us, Brenda.
You're welcome.
Okay, if I've missed, I'm not sure if I've missed anybody. Help me out, group. There's 25 of us up on the screen here. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Mary Ellen and Ron, I see you at the bottom. Would you like to speak this evening? Or this morning? Excuse me. Welcome.
Hopefully it doesn't go to evening.
Yeah, thanks, pal. Justin, if you could
No,
unmute
we
them.
just got out of the city, I'm sorry, out of forum and decided to drop in to see what was going on.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Good morning to both of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the comments from everybody and the time it took to make them. I took some notes from everyone. So let's see. I know that we ended last meeting talking a little bit about the student involvement. But as I mentioned, the agenda is open. Is there a topic that we'd like to start off on, or anybody has a desire to start on, please? Seeing the silence. Justin?
Move to adjourn.
If the students are interested in continuing the discussion, I'd say it'd be good to start with them when they have plenty of time.
Yeah, I think so too, Zach. Why don't we talk a little bit about what what they put in the packet and what they said last week there.
Sure.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, I was just gonna say we ran over really quickly all the information, so I guess if anyone had any questions, that might be a good place to start. Or we can go into more detail about how we came to these decisions or whatever.
Well, I like Alex. We've got now 2 years of comparison, or maybe it's just a year and a half. We started with the students in early 2018, I think it was, and then switched over to you folks, you and Bella. But this is Bella's now second year, second term on council, and there has been good input from you both on different topics. I don't know if the fact that we've been meeting virtually has made it easier for the students to talk. When we had them right next to us the first year, they were very quiet, at least to council. Just as a matter of course, for everybody on the call, we typically have transitioned our student reps in June of each year. So we're actually, going to be advertising for students that are interested in participating, for the next fiscal year, starting here soon. So that'll be showing up in the email alert going out. So I like the mentoring angle. I think maybe we should talk a little bit about the mentoring angle. If we were going to do some mentoring, I would like to think we would do it across all of the different boards. And I don't know. I guess I could make the assumption that there's at least 2 people on each board that would be willing to help mentor one or the other. Although I think, if I remember, Alex, your and Bella's suggestion was maybe to meet with more than just one, meet with different members of council, right? Throughout
That's
the
correct.
year.
We didn't want it to become an echo chamber. We thought it'd be really great to hear everyone's opinion, and so you could really have a deeper understanding of how everyone feels.
Okay. Well, should we?
Would it be too much to have like a regular mentor and then or more organized meetups with other folks on council? So you kind of have that home base, but you're also purposely mixing and mingling?
I think that's a great idea. I think that could be really useful if there's like a really quick question that you could just ask a designated person and have that taken care of. But I also know that everyone here is very friendly. And so if I ever had a question, I'm sure that anyone would be willing to answer it.
Well, maybe council could think about, maybe council members might want to volunteer to be a mentor. And then I like Zach's idea of getting some type of planned schedule for communication. I think I'd like to see that down through the other boards as well, so the other students have the same level of opportunity, that if we're going to choose to do it that way here at council.
John,
Yes.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Donna. You know what? I don't have my participant window open because I could see everybody. Let me,
Okay,
that's my
no
bad.
prob- No
Go ahead.
problem.
Go ahead, Donna, and then we'll go to Maria. I missed Maria's hand as well. Sorry.
When we first talked about doing this, the biggest concern that I had was not with the students, how they would do or not do as far as being any kind of extra work or whatever. It was that we might not keep up our end of it because we are responsible for making sure that you have an informed, positive experience. And I think that we certainly have come to the point where we need to get behind our kids. And I would be happy to serve on a mentor committee. I'd be very happy to do that. That's all.
Okay. Jamie, I see your hands up.
Marie's might have been up before mine.
Okay, Marie, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to mention, in the past, I know Justin went to the high schools and talked to students about elections and being an election worker. And we, as staff, have done, a lot of mentoring type of activities at the college level. But I was just wanted to throw out there that to the students as something to think about whether or not you want any interaction from the administrative side of local government, because sitting on council, you're seeing the policy side, but just something to think about, in the future, if you wanted to incorporate. I know I would be happy to talk to students. I'm sure everybody on staff would be. So that was just a suggestion I want to throw out there.
Absolutely. Well, and doesn't the high school also have a day for seniors where they get to go out and kind of like not take your kid to work day, but actually get to pair it along with actual work being done in places?
I'm not familiar with such a project. It's definitely a possibility that happens. I'm just not aware of it.
Okay, Jamie.
Student reps joined obviously before I joined council. And so I don't know if somebody could give a quick overview of what the original or even current thinking was. One understanding I had was that we wanted student participation so that they could bring that perspective to council. So I guess that's one understanding. I didn't know if there was a more specific projects that they would be working on, or if it was always just that they were coming to share their perspective and maybe they might initiate things, or is that ever the case that council says, we're interested in this, go look at this. And the other thing I'm trying to keep in mind, I was trying to find other communities who also have student reps. I think I know the school board has student reps. That to me seems to make a little more sense because it's talking about schools, which with the population there is students. I think it's a little harder for me to yeah, I guess like fully understand the devotion of resources to student participation when they would be able to participate like any other member of the public at any other time during a meeting. So maybe if someone could give me a better perspective on what the original thinking was, the current thinking is, what they're supposed to be doing, what we're supposed to be doing, that sort of thing. Thanks.
I don't want to steal from Councilmember Michelle's because he was really the one that brought this to our attention as a good idea. And I think it was a good idea. I think the observation, Jamie, was that the schools were doing it at some level. Okay, now we didn't witness that firsthand, but we were aware that they were doing it at some level. If you sort of tie in Ryan's point from earlier about teaching and offering an opportunity for our youth and the people in our community that are a little younger than those of us on council to get an introduction to what goes on at the government level, and we have so many committees that we're giving people exposures across a wide range of things. It allows people to become more familiar with even the boundaries of what's city versus what's school or that, and then I think what you mentioned is a priority, and that is that the younger next generations have sometimes maybe a different set of eyes on something and a different set of opinions on things. And to the extent that they're willing to share it, we have tried to bring that into our listening and our learning. And they don't speak on every topic, just like we don't speak on every topic. There's sometimes when topic comes up and I don't have anything to say either. Or one of us doesn't have anything to say, but it's all those goals all at once. They haven't been, to my knowledge, really assigned anything per se up until recently when Alex volunteered to think a little bit about the park usage and ask that question and explore that with Michelle. And then, this is, I mentioned this is year 2, and both Alex and Bella now have 2 years of comparing last year to this year, and the idea to bring back suggestions. It's sort of at the appropriate point to get some feedback, from them. And I guess I'd be interested in, as part of this, to see if they would be willing to reach out to the other student members on the other boards and see if there's any other ideas that could be incorporated into that document. Zach, I talked a long time, so help me here if there's other goals that we had set out when we set this up.
Well, I'll do a short version. So my thoughts were that it benefits the city and it benefits those who participate as student reps. So it benefits the city because it brings voice to a quarter of our population that isn't otherwise represented. And because their experiences are very different than ours, for example, most of them don't drive. So when we're thinking about a development or sidewalks or something like that, they're going to have a very different perspective than what we will, which means we're not necessarily anti that perspective, just we haven't thought about it because we've had cars to get around for 30 or 40 or 50 years. Then the other bit was to benefit the students where they get to see how things actually work, so they're in the future able to engage with their own governments wherever it is, and that they know this entire world exists. I'm an urban planner. I didn't realize that was an actual profession you could do until I was in my 3rd year of undergraduate. So exposing them is beneficial to them as well. That's a quick version.
Thanks, Zach. Does that help, Jamie?
Yep, it does. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Wah? I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was just wanted to chime in earlier and say I'd be happy to help with the mentoring of the student reps. I would have loved to have something like that when I was their age, and I think it's a great program. And I've worked with, you guys here now and also the reps on ACH, and have been very impressed and would really like to help them, have an even better experience with the program.
Well, maybe Donna and Wah, maybe the two of you could work together to put together some type of recommendation on how we can, all interact with them, or if there's a rotation, as Zach suggested, with a lead person, maybe you guys could think about expanding that. Would you be willing to do that?
It's a deal.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's good. Julie, thoughts?
I'm good. I think our student reps are doing a fabulous job, and I appreciate Alex coming forth with this whole thing about the city park and the holiday season and adding to that. I think that's a wonderful idea. So good work, both of you.
Paul, good morning. Haven't heard your voice yet.
No, well, I was
Other than the adjournment motion.
right. Well, it was pretty silent there for a while, so I thought maybe I'd throw it out there just to wake you all up. No, I was referred to in by Alex in the air. He called me up and said, "Could we meet?" So we met down there at the Riverview Cafe and spent an hour and a half. I think it was at least that long, just talking about the various issues of the city and how things are done. And it was very informative for me as well to have somebody that young. I had 3 sons and 2 of them went to Boise State, and they learned the process of government that way. But locally, maybe they don't have that opportunity. So I think this is an opportunity for young people to see how government works in their community. And the city council is the one or the school boards are the one where most of the activity is done. And we expanded it to some of our other committees, like Donna mentioned, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage, or WA did, and Donna's on that committee. So we have an opportunity to let students know what's happening and participate. Now, their responsibility, also is to ask questions of other students, what they want and what they feel, and then bring that back to us. And so it's a two-way street, and they've done a really good job. I agree with Julie. The idea of other types of performances, activities at the Christmas time was great. I appreciate that. I hope those could be implemented. Too bad they didn't have not quite enough time this year, but sometimes it's just that little bit of change, that spark that changes a thing that really will turn into a tradition for years and years. So I really appreciate them and appreciate what they do. It's just another way of communication with another part of our population, as Zach said, for about a quarter. We shouldn't be afraid of this. There's nothing to be afraid to have their opinion, and we should welcome it.
Thanks, Paul. Michelle, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, yes, thanks, Sean. I appreciate the opportunity. Just to piggyback on the student representation, one of the things that I continually follow, as you know, is SEMCOG's community profiles, excuse me, especially on the people and population segment. And the city of Dexter really bucks the trend as far as community demographics, where many communities that have downtowns, traditional downtowns, small downtowns like Dexter, their senior population continues to expand and is actually the largest cohort in their community from the ages of 65 and above. Even the ages of 55 and above are their largest cohorts. And their student population, or K through 12, the 5 to 17 bracket, and their working populations are smaller. In Dexter, we have just the opposite. Our 25 to 55 cohort, which would be your families and your workforce, are the largest cohort currently in the city, and projected to continue that way. The next largest cohort is our 5 to 17 age. That's the student population there. The next largest is the 65 to 84 after that. So the 2 largest cohorts together are larger, individually are larger than our senior cohort. So having this connection with students at an early age, I think really plays in nicely with Ryan's thoughts on civic engagement. It's not the be all and end all, mind you, but it is a really good way to begin that process at those ages, and we can always build upon it. So Just wanted to leave that out for you. And if anybody wants the community profiles, I'm happy to provide it. Or you can go to SEMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, and find the community profiles on their website.
Thanks, Michelle. Good information. Appreciate it. Zach? Back to you, sir.
So I'm going to throw out a couple of questions for the student reps and I guess for the rest of us there. For recognizing achievements, when I've talked with folks at the schools, they pointed out that the schools are very large and there's like 7 townships in the city. And so their concern was, well, what about the students who live in Webster Township or Dexter Township? And so my thoughts were, I don't care, we'll recognize the teams or whatever, but it provides an opportunity for us to potentially coordinate with these other entities that say, hey, we're doing this recognition thing. Here's whatever the resolutions of greatness of achievement. But yeah, so that could be a little bit complex for recognizing. I don't care if we're the only ones who are doing it. I think it's good to have that in there. And then for student involvement, I'm curious what sort of involvement would be most interesting or of interest to the students. Is it park cleanup day? We've done some plantings in the past, but that was usually reached out with our traditional methods that probably don't reach that age group. Tour of the waste treatment plant, or folks from the city coming in to talk with folks before school or during a class. So I'm curious what sort of those engagements, involvement they think would be most interesting and beneficial.
I think the engagements that would be most beneficial are about the ones that are, I would say maybe like the more contentious issues that come to council. I think students really like to be involved with those issues. It makes them feel like their voice is being heard. It makes them feel as if they know what's going on. And so maybe if we were able to, I know the school has a newspaper. If maybe we were able to communicate so that we have like a little section in there and we were like, this is what is happening. We made this decision. Or there's a public hearing on this issue. If you'd like to come speak and share your opinion, I think that would really be a great way to let students know what is happening in the community and also encourage them to interact with us.
Thanks, Alex.
You could work with them to get like a student rep corner column or something. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely on board with, more communication, and that if they already have that platform, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Other thoughts on this topic while we're on it?
I think one of the things that students need to know is how things really work in their community, So you talk about, why do we put a stoplight here? Why do we have a traffic stop here? Why is the speed limit so slow in this area here? When I taught my environmental ed classes, one of the most fun things for me to do is to take the kids to the wastewater treatment plants, because most of them had no idea where their waste went. They just, they flushed it and it was gone. That's all they cared about. And they had no idea that it was going to end up in a river in some cases, or be treated before that, and how it was done. And so, I took them to the Dexter plant, to the Lock Alpine plant, and to the Ann Arbor plant. And it was enlightening for them to see those types of things. And that's part of our job here in the community, to provide that disposal process. Most people don't understand it at all. They just pay their taxes and pay their water fee and their sewer fee, and that's it. And yet that's where a lot of their dollars go in taxes. Every time we raise those water fees and those sewer fees, I would think that they should know that the reason that they do that is because we do a good job of that. And I even taught classes in Ann Arbor after I left Dexter there, and taught classes there through the Watershed Council, and they were shocked to know that most of their water, 80% of it, comes out of the river. And that we in Dexter and upstream dumped our effluent into that stream, and they couldn't believe how it was done. And so those were enlightening things for students to understand about government works. And it's a major part of it. If you don't believe that, look at Dan sitting there comfortably in the chair right now, but it's not comfortable most of the time when he has to do his job, and all the dedicated people that work for us in that department. But it's an important part of learning how your city operates and what a sewer is, and when it says down there, we put a sign that says flows to the river. Those are important things that students should as well know. And this is just another opportunity for them to understand it. And hopefully they can get that information out to other students as well.
Thanks, Paul. I see a blue hand up from Ryan. Justin, can you help me give him access, I think, again, please?
Hi, I just wanted to make a pretty brief comment. I think that all those things are good. Alex and Bella can confirm this for me, but in all of my time working with working with like current students in high school, middle school, they're really concerned about the environment and about environmental issues. I think that a good place to start would be to find ways to give some enhanced opportunities for participation to students around anything focusing on our environment. They will have to live with it longer than we will, and they currently do not have the ability to vote on decisions that are being made for things. So I think it's a good way to channel that engagement and also honor the truth of what we're facing in terms of climate change and environmental issues around Michigan.
Thanks, Ryan. Good
Good
suggestions.
thoughts, Ryan. Good thoughts.
Okay.
Sean, just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin, please.
When we did the renovations to the wastewater treatment plant, we did a public open house where we invited everyone to come out to the wastewater treatment plant and see the improvements that were done. Once things settle down with COVID and things start to normalize a little bit, I could see that being an annual thing where we invite everyone from the public to come down and take a tour of the plant and see how things operate there.
Sounds okay to me. Mr. McCarter, I see you have your hand back up.
Yeah, Sean, just so you could clarify for me before we make any substantive comment, I'm presuming because you called on me, it's okay for us to make brief comments during this portion of the meeting.
Yeah, I'm treating it as an open session. Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll make a quick comment on this particular topic. Alex, I too am really impressed with your participation in the council. And because I was a teacher, because I go to a lot of school board meetings, I see the counterpart going on over there a lot. So again, that integration thing to me is really important. And my impression of students, correct me if I'm wrong here though, my impression of students is that they don't want to close in within the Dexter Community Schools. They want to reach out. They want to reach out to other students. They want to reach out and understand the world and the context that they're going to be acting in when they enter into the communities. Is that a fair statement?
I would say so. I think people like to be connected, and they're really good at that.
Okay, so here's a suggestion I would make on that score in this agenda topic. And it goes back to one of the comments that was made in Jamie's survey. This is just a direct quote out of it. The city of Dexter should think for itself, and a goal should be to distance itself from Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. Really? Let me put myself down exactly on the opposite of that, even though there is some unspoken context in that comment that I think is important. Alex has spoken to the younger generations thinking about connections more broadly. And others in the council have spoken to how this prepares our students to be active participants in our community or another community when they emerge from our school system. So I would encourage this kind of cooperation between Dexter and other communities like Ann Arbor, like Ypsilanti, and have people talking to each other, cross the stovepipes, you know, When you divide things in a democracy, if you don't have some way to mesh them together, to integrate them together, that's the recipe for problems. So I guess specifically, I would say 2 thumbs up. And can you connect this to, I absolutely support the fact that we're a broader district than just Dexter City. And that doesn't bother me at all. The people from the out of Dexter parts come into town for economic activity, for recreational activity. We're all integrated in this. So the overlap, yes. Recognize awards across the whole district, even if it isn't the city. Recognize our connectivity to Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. They're our neighbors. They're our county big counterparts, and also to go after the small counterparts, connect to Chelsea, except in football and soccer.
Thank you, Mr. McCarter. Appreciate it again. Dan, you had your hand up there. You want to jump back in?
Yeah, I was going to give you a little history. Before we started the major construction down here over the past 10 years, we used to work with the City of Ann Arbor School District, and myself and Andrea would get tours of anywhere from 20 to 30 kids at the wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, over that 10-year period with the construction going on, it kind of limited what we could do, because usually construction projects down here last quite a while. Over the past 10 years, I personally have dealt with Dexter students on our water system and also on the wastewater. I'm thinking at this point, with the construction being done, that's something that, you know, we've done for a number of years, 10, 15 years, and I would not mind at all bringing that back once we figure out this COVID.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Sanam, welcome. Justin, if you could help me there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean, and hi, everyone. I want to second a few comments, and especially the participation of the student representatives in Arts and Culture and Heritage Committee. It has been amazing to have them as part of the committee and have their perspective and their help in how we, the various things that we do in the committee. Our work that we do is very public facing, is bringing with for example, Paint Dexter Festival, as Jim said, we bring a lot of people from all around communities to Dexter, and this is how we are representing Dexter, and having the perspective of that generation is absolutely amazing. And we still have 2 people there, but we always look for volunteers. We always look for more participation, and definitely in terms of mentoring and helping in getting the students to know more about arts and cultures, not only in Dexter, but in general. We'll be more than happy to add to that.
Great. Thanks for your leadership with those other students. Appreciate it. Okay, well, I took down that we have at least one action item coming out of this, which is La and Donna to help set up some schedules, and maybe you can reach out to some of the other committees a little bit, or get a sample schedule together, and then we can figure out how to get the other committees to think about it as well. So we can have some unified approach across our different areas where we have the student participation. Mary Ellen, I see a hand went up, or Ron. I see Ron in the picture. Justin, you would please.
So yeah, I just wanted to pop in real quick as a member of the Parks and Rec Committee to speak to the student participation too, and in a positive way. I think it's because our parks do involve people from all the surrounding areas, and we encourage that. It's important to have the students who are really representative of the families in the Dixie area to have that point of view. And we thought a lot about that when we sent our survey out, because obviously it's not just looking inward to the city, but it's looking at how the city reaches out to its community. So I think it's critical to have the student input on that. I think it's been very useful to the committee, and we're continually looking for ways to involve them more and have them feel like they're active participants in their. But I also want to speak to what Zach pointed out too, that it's important that the Dexter community represents its civic function, and that idea also broadens out as these students, when they go out into the world, that they have some idea. And if we hadn't had any better representation of that, the importance of understanding how governments functions and their purpose. We surely got a sign of that this past week or two, and how important, critical, and fragile it is. The earlier, the better. So I think it's great. So that's my point.
That's very, very good ones. Thank you for adding that, Ron. Appreciate your participation. Okay, should we find another topic, or if we want to stay on this one, we can. Jamie, hands up, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to move on to something else. Just, yeah, I guess in the interest of time.
Okay.
So I put together these things in the packet. I appreciate the feedback that I've received from community members. I appreciate that you've also taken the time to be here. I don't want to go into great detail about the results of the survey. I will just say that as somebody on council, I feel like I am obligated and elected to solicit citizen input in, I guess, whatever way I'm able to do that. I will say, when I circulated in the past, I circulated 2 petitions. There were people who did not sign a petition, not because they didn't agree with the content of the petition, but because they were worried about retribution. They owned a business, they worked at a business, they were friends of people on council, they had kids in the schools, any number of reasons people were afraid to put their name to something. And I appreciate what is being said about, maybe people take things too far when they are, behind, when they're kept to be anonymous. When I will say, if you looked at the original questions of this survey, I wasn't explicitly asking for input about any specific current or past or future city project. I left it very open-ended. The way I consider, like how to consider public input, is that there's a chance that there might be something that you haven't thought of, in the same way we've been talking about the participation of student reps. They bring a perspective or a voice that we might not be considering. Does that mean we're going to agree with everything they say? No. In the same way, the public input, the written public input that was received via the survey, does that mean I asked for it? Does that mean I agree with everything that they said? No. Are there parts of it that might resonate with me? Yes. Are there parts that don't? Yes. And, so I'll consider what seems to resonate and seems relevant, and I'll set aside what doesn't. In the same way, any spoken public comment with a name attached to it. If something resonates with me, I'll consider it and think on it. If something doesn't resonate with me, I'll ask myself why it doesn't resonate with me, and then decide to discard it or to keep considering it moving forward. When it came time to compile these results, again, I asked for public input. I shared it through the avenues that I knew how, and I said I would share it with council. So I originally started by summarizing it into these topic areas, and pulled, I thought, the most relevant excerpts that spoke to those topics. And if you review my initial summary based on topic area, I left out most of the comments that have been discussed at this meeting, because I did not feel like they were necessarily helpful or productive in the context of this meeting or moving forward. I am committed to moving forward. As you can see, I did spend a lot of time working on this, and I would love more than anything to spend more time helping the city have a single citizen engagement effort, even a subcommittee that's talking about that and talking about the issues of how do you balance, the freedom that comes with anonymous feedback, but then do you publish all of that? Do you not? And so I originally was only planning on sharing my summary of what I thought to be the most helpful and I guess exemplary, pieces of direct public input. Then I also felt a real tension between possible FOIA concerns, what is actually public record? And if I didn't share everything, would I be seen as holding something back, having censored something in some way? And I don't feel like that's appropriate either. So I appreciate the feedback I've received. I appreciate that, I agree, there are some comments in there that demonstrated a misunderstanding between the role of the city and the role of the school board. Who was writing letters to the editor? Was it somebody who's actually a city official, or was it somebody else? And again, if there's information in those comments that can help identify a productive way to move forward, to say, oh, people don't have an understanding between what the city council does and what the school board does when it comes to are the kids in school or not. Maybe there's an education component. I think Ryan Henry brought that up. Maybe there's an education component that comes into play. So again, had the attention not be drawn so specifically to those comments, I had no intention of drawing specific attention to those comments other than feeling an obligation to share them with the people on council. It was not my intention to spend any amount of time digging deep into the comments that I felt like were not relevant or helpful for moving forward. And so how would I suggest moving forward, or what feedback did I receive? Last meeting, we talked a lot about the importance of public input. We've talked a lot about it at this meeting, having a unified approach. In the initial summary that I put together, last meeting, we talked a bit about hiring a media, marketing, or communications director. I still think that's relevant. I understand we have constraints already on staff, but I think that's something I would like to move towards, because I think there's a lot of these gaps that we're identifying. I know our staff are overburdened, and it seems to indicate that we could use some help in that area. As a council, I would also like to consider possibly new subcommittees, or, I'm not sure what the best way to make, to help some of this move forward. I've indicated that maybe we could have just a subcommittee for citizen engagement to start moving that forward. It's a priority to me. I don't know if it's a priority to other members of council, so I just want to put that on the record. It's a priority to me. Be happy to serve on a subcommittee about citizen engagement. In what I shared, nowhere did I indicate that this was a representative sample. It was the only part of it that was quantitative is I indicated the number of respondents and how many came back from the platform as being verified, which means they were somehow mapped to the registered voter database. I'm not suggesting that this generalizes to the population, nor would I suggest that the public input we're receiving at this meeting generalizes to the population. That doesn't mean we can't keep moving forward and trying to find a way to adopt a system that might make that more possible. So I would like to see possibly a subcommittee on citizen engagement. I would also like to see possibly a subcommittee on policy, rules, or ordinance drafting. It seems like a lot of the ordinances that come through are maybe more, to me, they seem like more administrative or technical in function, like the ordinances about outdoor service areas, or the kennels, commercial kennels. They're trying to clean up what's happening with the general code and the ordinances, or the zoning stuff. But I think there are also things, our rules document, or if we do want, I think we saw a topic about the good governance initiative. I don't know if Zach and Wa are going to speak more about that at this meeting or not. But if there are other types of policies, people have indicated, and I think it's been a goal in the past, of having a social media policy, having a website policy, things like that. Are those things that we do deferring completely to staff, or would it be more effective if it was a staff and certain members of council doing the heavy lifting and then bringing that to the entire council for their input? And then I guess, so those are a couple things that stand out that seem most relevant, possibly these subcommittees to forward the city's goals about citizen engagement, some various policies. And then I guess one sort of process related question is just generally, again, making sure that these things happen or that we continue to make progress. Is it ever the case that we can schedule out either work sessions make sure we have one work session a month and make sure there's, one of these topics are on the work sessions to make sure that we're, making progress on that. Or if it's not a work session, getting a specific point on the agenda to say, that we for sure want something on the ballot about the fire station by then, which means working backwards, we need to have talked about it at these meetings. So we're putting a placeholder on all of these meetings to make sure we're talking about that. I don't know if that's something that's ever been done. That's something I know when I'm doing planning and I know I'm running up on a deadline or I have a goal end date. Sometimes I start from the end and then figure out, okay, that means yesterday I should have started. And it's helpful to do things that way. So I guess a lot of things out there, but I just wanted to make sure I got them out there today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Wah?
Thanks, Sean. I want to respond to some of that and also just start off by saying that the one thing that I had, put in for consideration when we put these meetings together was related to all of this. And, I think got put under the heading of good government. But the way that I was sort of phrasing it was, and this is kind of an impossible question, but how do we best get citizen input from the voters? And then how do we most effectively use that? And I guess when I opened the packet for this meeting, frankly, I was shocked. And Jamie, I think that if you had just prefaced this with a lot of what you just said, this would have landed a lot better. But to open the packet and just see anonymous hate was really difficult for me to deal with, not because I felt like I was being attacked personally, but because I was having a really hard time with the idea that that is how we get our input, because that is not how I think is appropriate. And yes, there are plenty of things in this document that I may not agree with, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't stand, like to help these people learn how to better advocate. I think we have a responsibility to do that. I mean, I do. And I think it was careless to not put some of those things on this as a note. I mean, you have the skills and you have the knowledge to say this is not statistically significant, to explain those types of things. And I think that would have gone a long way. And also, I just think it would have been, from my perspective as a new council member, I would have liked to have had this conversation before. I mean, I would have never gone out and done this. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong to go out and survey people, but I just think, we got to walk before we run, right? And I just had a really hard time with the way that this was presented. And I don't know if, I know it wasn't necessarily your intention, but it just didn't, it was difficult for me. And I think that, I think some of what you suggested with the subcommittees and whatnot, and I would like to move forward and I would like to discuss how we don't get in this situation again and what we can do better to get the input and use it, because we should, that should be our goal. So I'm open to suggestions. I don't have an answer. Justin, at one point, you and I were having a conversation about this, and you said, we would make a lot of money if we could come up with a perfect document for how to engage citizens. Every government would want it and every government would use it. So it's not an easy answer, but we have to talk about it.
I mean, if it would be helpful, I'm happy to write up a half page and have it appended to the packet. Or, I mean, if people think that would be helpful, if they feel like the damage is done and there's nothing to be done about it, I don't want to keep messing with it. I'm happy to move forward, but if somebody wants me to add something to the document, I'm happy to add something to the document.
Well, let me just jump in from a process perspective, if I can. And typically, at least if I go back 12 years, typically prior to any work session or council meeting, I'm reviewing the packet before it goes out. And, last Saturday, Jamie mentioned to all of us that she had some things that she wanted to share for this work session. And so it wasn't a surprise to me that there was something in the packet But I admittedly did not see it this week. And that's a rarity for stuff that ends up in the public forum. Okay, it may not be my sole job to be the one that looks at everything and determines what should be out there or not. But Jamie, had I seen this before the packet was released, I probably would have picked up the phone and called you and said, hey, I like the summary you put together. I don't think there's any validity in sharing the anonymous feedback in this manner. You know, if you want to share it with council, you send it to us separately or print it off and mail it in an envelope to everybody and just say, hey, here it is. You know, the comment that Ryan made about, you know, the information on the website and whether it's damaging, you know, people do searches and how do they associate, you know, those few comments. I mean, when I first started reading, it was a mountain of information. And it wasn't until I got to the end, and thank you for at least giving us a clue as to how many people there actually were. I couldn't get off of the one comment. It was like 3.5 pages. And I kept thinking, is this the same person that's typed all this? I'd like to really, you know, when I saw the anonymous part, I probably would have said, don't put that in the packet. And now you may have disagreed with me, and then we probably would have had a conversation. I don't know if you would have disagreed or not, but if you had, I would have said, well, look, hold it for now. Let's talk about it. But I am concerned about the image that it presents when people are allowed to just ramble like that without fact. I mean, a lot of that is false. And as you said this morning, and thank you for saying it, you agree that some of it is not, well, so much of what we see is based upon perspective. So maybe my comment about it not being fact, a lot of it is not tied to fact when I read it. It does not seem like true statements. The stuff about anti-family, anti-youth, anti-activity that you did include in your comments there, those just aren't true. I know that this year has been a tough year with the COVID focus that we have had, but we have focused on minimizing activities to keep our families and our youth and our town as safe as we can, given what we're able to do and the choices we're able to make to do that. I know, and it hasn't been easy as one of 7 council members, as mayor of this town, it has not been easy to say no to some of those groups that work so hard on those things that mean so much to people. I have talked to, you know, going all the way back to May when we couldn't do the Memorial Day activities. Okay, I mean, if there isn't anybody out there, that was a hard decision. That was one of the first ones to drop. But the Rotary Club that takes pride in that, leading that, members of the Legion, the community members that participate in all that, those activities are entirely family friendly. They involve a lot of our community, and I know that we didn't do them this year. But I know you realize why we didn't do them. So I guess I'm going to apologize to everybody. I'm accountable for things too. My job sometimes gets in the way of me doing things, and I did not get with Justin this week, or else I would have called Jamie and gotten in the middle of this a little bit before all this got to this point. I will say that, and a couple council members reached out to me and talked to me about their concerns about what's here. And I looked at it all. I read all 19 pages of what you submitted, read it this morning. And it's funny, right before my walk, I actually felt very energized by it. Okay, well, you may think that, Paul, I appreciate
I think that's really a neat comment, because you kind of walk off your frustration sometimes.
Well, what I thought about is I thought about what I read, and you know, maybe it is a small sample size, but we are in a position here to make some choices on how we do things. Okay, I don't know exactly how I feel about a citizen engagement committee yet. I'm not sure what that exactly means. We are all very, very accessible, and many people on this call have reached out to me at different points throughout my time on council. It's not hard to get in touch with any of us. I don't know what a citizen engagement committee might do necessarily. I'm not saying we don't have to do it, but we're all very accessible. As I read through the comments and sorted through, different things there, I think it reinforces that we are headed in the right direction in a very many different ways. Now there are also comments there that I think we should glean things from. And Jamie, I think, approached some of these. She knew about some of those comments last meeting because, things like lights on the crosswalks. We talked a lot about lights above the crosswalks at our last meeting. That's valid. Okay. Now, I don't know what there's a science to how much light and from what angle. And then there's people that think there's too much light. Okay. And, the whole dark skies thing. So that there's a balance in everything that we're doing. But I think that if we read some of the comments just at face value, understand that some people are frustrated with some of the way things have happened. It's been a frustrating year. I think there's a productive way to take whatever we can out of that. I do think, though, that going forward, if somebody doesn't have the ability to put their name next to their comment, that it shouldn't be in the packet as anonymous. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it should be in a packet. Now, I will also admit I considered, okay, well, what do you do once it's in the packet? What do you do? I mean, can we not post it on our website? Does council have to agree to not post it? Is there any value in taking it down? Or how do you get rid of a packet once it's online? Once it's been put together, is there a way to get rid of it? I will also say I looked up the Open Meetings Act this morning. It doesn't say anything about how to cancel a meeting or what you do if you even do cancel a meeting. It talks all about how to have one and what you can do in it and not do in it and closed session and all that other stuff. But I think we just have to learn from this packet, or as best we can. And anyway, I wanted to just let all of you know, I didn't get a chance to review it, or Jamie, I would have called you and said, hey, would you consider, at least for one meeting, holding off, or if you want to share it, could you share it a different way? And as a reminder, whenever you send something for any packet, please copy me. It's in the current council rules that the city manager and the mayor get contacted about anything for a packet for an agenda item. So if I'm just reminding people, even though we haven't adopted our own per se council rules, the old ones are still in effect, and that's been there for a great many years. And Jamie, I don't think you had copied me on that email. Justin was good enough to forward it. I did go back and see that he had forwarded it, but I didn't see it.
Okay.
So if you would add that step to your repertoire, I would appreciate it. Sorry to be on a soapbox, but I just wanted to make some of those points or issue some of those opinions, I guess.
Sean, I do have a couple of comments on this.
Okay, please listen.
And I appreciate everyone's thoughts, and I wanted to make a couple of things known, just so it's clear. Number one, staff did not participate in the distribution of the survey. It didn't go out through the city's website, Facebook, email, etc. But yesterday I spent a good portion of my day fielding phone calls and talking to staff, and I think rightly so, a number of staff were offended by the comments included in the survey. And they're really, we're in public positions. This isn't the first time that any of us have been called names. That comes with the territory. But it's different when it's members of staff or members of the public that we're trying to help versus members of council. And I think that what I would like to make sure is that, council does not agree with some of the comments that were made. and that council does support staff and doesn't believe, like, some of the comments that staff is corrupt. And that's how I spent a good portion of my day yesterday, is dealing kind of with the fallout of the comments that were included. Leaving me unable to do the other things that I'm responsible for. So again, this isn't the first time that any of us have been called out or have had to deal with things being thrown at us. But to see it in a public packet, I think is hard for a lot of us. And I think we have amended packets before, Sean, to your point, particularly when things get submitted at a meeting. As long as those materials are available, should we need to provide them through a FOIA, I think that is appropriate. If council did want to amend the packet to eliminate that, so it is no longer on the website as a public document, or immediately available as a public document, I think that is an option.
Thanks, Justin, for your comments and for the process part of that. Got a number of hands up that have come up and down. Jamie, it looks like you're at the top of my list anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I guess just a couple more thoughts. I appreciate everybody's conversation about this. I really did not intend for it to waylay us the way it has, but if there's a way that we can grow and learn from it, I'm certainly open to that. One thing I want to make sure, because I feel like it's been sort of implied in some comments, please know that I solicited the public input. I did not generate it. And I had similar reactions to things that was in it. And again, I was trying to balance attention between FOIA, was I obligated to report this? Was I not? And then something else I think that's important to consider. I appreciate the point about anonymity. Had people come and made these statements at a public meeting in person on video, and had we been recording it or live streaming, or had we already had policy where we were posting these videos online, to me, the only difference then is that the public, they're not text searchable and somebody's name is attached to them. And so I guess there are a variety of ways that the public can publicly voice a dissent with what we're doing. And yes, this is on the public record. It's written in a document, and I suppose the names are not attached to it, but the public has, and likely will continue to make oral statements on the record, perhaps on video. So I guess I'm just wondering what is the difference between somebody coming and maybe making, is it just that they were anonymous and so you think they said things they wouldn't have said in person?
Jamie, the difference, the difference is there's accountability when your name is there. The other difference is I can put it into context. Okay, I'm allowed to go back to that person and say, hey, what did you mean by that? Or why do you think we're anti-youth or anti-family? Or why do you think that I'm not transparent? Because, maybe because I put a sign in my yard against, voting for the charter amendment. How much more transparent could I be? I mean, I told you what my vote was going to be. The anonymous person didn't. I mean, there's perspectives on this that all of that comes from there's no context to it when it comes that way. It just looks like a rant. Okay. And I hope you understand that. I hope you get that difference in the communication world here. The difference is if somebody wants to come stand in front of me, you did this many times for us during the past couple of years when you were not on council. You came and told us directly that you didn't like something, or you did like something, or you thought we should do something different. We knew who to respond to if we had to respond. This is a one-way at the end of the gun. Okay, we're just sitting there taking it. There's no way to get back to the person. Okay, unless because maybe they had to sign in or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you verified the names or somehow did something, but there's no way to respond. And that's what's unfair about the process that way.
Thank you. Please do not conflate the responses with my opinions. I did not respond to that survey. None of
Well, that may be true, but you chose to put some of them in your summary that was summarizing the ones you thought were important. And you put in there, the city appears to be, and you thought that was important to put in there. So I don't know, I was gonna ask you actually off the record, separate, but maybe I should do it now. I was gonna ask you which ones of those you thought were just. But I don't know that, I'm not trying to get into an argument today on it, okay? I really want to grow from it. I'm okay with comments coming in. I personally think after 17 years of being on this council and 20 years almost of living in the community, that I can take a comment from anybody. I mean, I frankly, the number of people that were in this survey, I talk to more of them by going for a walk every morning. I get more input than this, and it's not this. Nobody tells me this. A lot of these I have not heard. So I know I could probably guess actually where some of these comments came from. Maybe that's not fair to do. And I'm not going to solicit names today, but I could guess where some of these came from or the direction of some of these comments, just by the nature of them, over having been here and read them in other forums and other places. But that's not productive. I'm trying to focus on what's here, you know, and the things that the topics that people want us to be thinking about and the themes that are built through this. And I appreciate that those are in front of us. Let me stop. But I would like to be able to talk to somebody that gives us input. And this doesn't allow me personally to do that. I'm going to let the council members talk first, and then I'll come back to the public. Wah?
Thanks, Sean. I do want to speak on two things related to this. One is that question of the difference between anonymous in writing, or not even necessarily anonymous, but like in writing versus in person. So if somebody comes to us in person, we have a chance to not only respond, ask for clarification, but we also have a chance to educate the constituents on the difference between what is under our jurisdiction and what is not. Here, I mean, I would love to, like I said in my previous comments, I'd love to help these people, you know, learn how to better advocate for themselves. But I don't know who to go back to and say, hey, the sidewalk is not something we can do. Hey, the schools going back, go talk to the school board. You know, I feel like it's just we're at a loss without being able to respond back and help, frankly. And the other thing I want to say is off of what Justin was saying, I do think, again, and you know, none of us on this at this meeting are perfect, and we're all going to make mistakes from time to time. I just feel like, Jamie, this is very damaging to the relationship between council and staff. And I really hope that we can find a way to, you know, improve that. I mean, I think we have a good basis, and I hate to keep saying like we're the new people, but we're the new people. And for this to be the way that they get approached, and I understand that these aren't all your opinions, but again, it's just nuance. It's nuance and it's communication, and I just think we all have to do better.
Again, I'll come back to a couple of the members of the public, Mr. McCarter and Ryan, but Zach, you're up next. And
all right, I'll try to touch on new topics that haven't been discussed recently. So first, I'm going to say I love how many people have been participating from the public in the goal setting session this year versus in past years. That's absolutely tremendous, whether it's participating in the Zoom or sending in emails. That's fantastic. And I think, you know, the emails we got, it was a relatively gentle touch where we had with the mailings, hey, we want to hear from you. It was just that invitation. And now we've got all these folks here sharing and helping us do a better job. So I love that. And I hope we'll continue to find ways to get better input. Concerning the anonymous stuff, I can make an argument both ways. So I'm a good urban planner. I can give you two answers on most things. And so the value potential value in us able to get anonymous stuff. So whether it's going on walks or talking to people casually, we had a joke in the Michigan marching band that no one talks to a rank leader about their marching. So behind that is that people aren't comfortable telling the rank leader that their angles are off, or they're not getting fast enough, or their angle of attention is off. And so they're allowed to continue to do stuff poorly, but everyone talks about it behind their back. So there can be, I think, value in a place for getting some feedback with people not having fear of their name attached to it. Personally, I'm comfortable putting my name to anything I sign, but I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Okay. Donna Fisher, please.
Yes, the concerns that I have, that I think we need to address them sometime, maybe not today, but information that was in the survey was incorrect. Courtney did not leave town for what is stated, and now we've left that impression for those people that think that the survey was from the city. That's a problem for me. One of the people that responded thought they were real proud of the fact that they had kept the Avalon project out of Dexter, and we better be careful in the future. That's not true. That did not happen. So I don't place a lot of value on things where people don't take ownership, as well as if they aren't informed. I really don't want to bother any more than looking at what they've got going on with complaints. So I think those things we need to do. And the other thing is, I don't think that people know what we do. I'm not responsible for Picnic in the Park. I think it's great, and I do anything I could to support a person who is trying to do that. But to say that this is a bad place to live because we don't have something to entertain someone every day of the week, that doesn't make any sense to me. I can't just throw a stop sign up anywhere. There are reasons that we put a stop sign here, we put one over there, we don't put one here. We have rules and regulations to follow, and we have a lot of people with different opinions, and we need to listen to what's being said. But some of that stuff is rooted in just plain not knowing how things operate. And that's something else that we might be able to do a better job of, letting people know what we are responsible for and what we are not. So that's all.
Thanks, Donna. Okay, let me go back up to order of how I got the hands on here. Mr. McCarter? Justin, if you could help.
You missed me on.
I didn't see your hand, Paul. Okay, hold on a second, Jim. Paul, I didn't mean to leave you out.
No, I know you don't. No, it's, you got a lot to see there. You know, I read this. I got angry parts of it. I got laughing at parts of it. How could this possibly be my responsibility to do this, to provide schools, Christian schools, or a private school in a city? It was just unbelievable, some of those things. But I decided that I was going to go back when Jamie mentioned that she worked with Palco to provide I got on that site. I couldn't find anything how I could provide a survey to me that was going to be valuable. And with the anonymous thing was just unbelievable to me. I couldn't understand how you could say that. I understand why people didn't want to say their name, because some of that stuff was so ludicrous. But other than that, I had a hard time figuring out the survey. And Jamie, even when you were running, you put a survey out on Facebook. I didn't see the results of that. You wanted information about people and information about issues in running. I got that, but I don't know how that's a valid survey by just putting it out on Facebook, that you wanted this information. So I have a hard time right now understanding the methodology of the surveys. I don't know if anybody else does, but I have a hard time. And I've taken surveys too, and sometimes I take them just because I want to screw them up. I give the wrong answers that I know they want. Okay, so the fact is, though, that I don't have a problem with trying to get information and how we get public input. And Donna will know, and Sean's been here long enough. You know, for 10 years in a row, 10 years in a row, we did not have one citizen, not one citizen come to the budget and talk about the budget or anything we had in the budget. 10 years in a row. I said, either they don't care or we're just doing one heck of a job. I don't know, how do you get more citizen input when you advertise that and they know it every year they can come and gripe about the budget. They can gripe about water rates. They can gripe about the taxes that we increase, which is rare. They can do all those things, but they never even showed up when we increased taxes. 10 years in a row. And you know that too. And there's been more years, between and after and before that they didn't. And some of you may be upset about what was said there. I was upset more about the staff, what they said about the staff than anything else. Because that's 100 degrees, 180 degrees wrong, let me tell you that. The staff we have down here, whether they work in a wastewater treatment plant or they pick up my branches or they work in the office there, are people that are dedicated to this city.
Indeed.
And don't forget that, because that's what it is. And most of the time we give them a bunch of crap to do that they don't even want to do, but they do it anyway. Okay. So don't be beating up on my staff, because they're a great staff there. That bothers me more than anything. Some of you don't know what it was like in the years past.
Absolutely.
You don't know what it's been like in the years past. My wife and I were sued for $1 million in gold bullion at one time by people in this city.
So was I.
And Donna was too.
That's right.
$1 million in that. Did I laugh at that? Yeah, it was a laughable. In gold, no less.
That's right.
We were told that our flag, because it had fringes on it, was illegal. We shouldn't even have that. We wouldn't have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. You know what some of us went through in years past that. Thank goodness we've gotten past that. But for some of the comments that were made, they were ignorant comments because they had no idea what was going on. And that bothers me, but I know they're out there. But I'll take anything. You heap in it. Somebody says, did that make you angry? Well, yes, it did. But mostly it made me angry about the staff, because they weren't elected at that job. I'm elected. I'm a big boy, and I can put my big boy pants on, and I can listen to people and I can respond to them if I have to. But if it's anonymous, I can't do that. And if it's a public meeting, I'll be glad to do that after the meeting, because most of the time you can speak at our meetings and we don't respond to you at all. Rarely do we give you a comment back. We do that afterwards, not then during the meeting. So to summarize, I have a hard time understanding the survey concept and what it really does. I'll be glad to listen to anybody that can tell me and help me out with that. Jamie, you're involved in that. Call me up and let's have a conversation with that. Now, in the old days, we'd have a cup of coffee, but we can't do that anymore. But I'd be glad to understand more about the survey and what that concept is. Other than that, I think that we have some other issues. Excuse me, one other thing. There was a common theme that I did here, and that was walking and lights in the city. Okay, and that's something that I can deal with. Okay, I can figure it all out, and if it's there and it works, we'll do that. We'll take care of that. If it's impossible, as Donna said, because of the law, we can't do that. There's certain speed limits we can't put on. We can't make it 10 miles an hour through the city. We can do some other things though, and I'll be glad to take those on and look at those at any point in time. But some of the other things that were there were just so far off that I don't know how they even thought that was going to be possible, and why it was our responsibility as the city to do some of the things that they had to do. So I've said enough. I'll be glad to move forward on this agenda and see if we can get some things done here. I'll be glad to talk some of the things that I can deal with, and that's looking at the agenda here. I've lost it now, but I'll see if I can find it. I'll be glad to talk about Robert's Rules training, conflict of interest training, Facilities, that's one that we've spent now, I don't know even what time it is, it's 11 o'clock almost. And we had 3 hours of another meeting and 2 hours so far of this meeting. And we haven't talked about city halls or offices or the fire hall. To me, that's a major priority that we have to deal with.
So Paul, I agree with you. I would like to have some more of these scheduled. We've gone 2 weeks in a row. Maybe we could take some time off. I think I'd like to have, Justin help get some timelines together where we can set up a next series of meetings. Jamie, I don't have any problem setting some workshops out monthly. If you want to do that throughout the year, I'm open to that idea. Let me try and get the next couple of these sessions together, and we'll focus on some of those topics, Paul, that you just ended there with. But given that we're
Thank you.
5 minutes to 11, the last 5 minutes, there's 4 resident hands up. I think it makes sense. Let's take the resident comment at the end of the meeting, and we'll start fresh at our next goal setting session. So Mr. McCarter, if you would like to go, and then Ryan, you'll be up next.
I'll try to be fast here.
Okay.
Sound check. Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First off, there's a catch-22, I think, here in taking at least 10 times as much effort to undo a falsehood as it takes to utter one. There are a lot of things that were just said in this last section that disturb me, and I have comments on. First off, Jamie, I am absolutely not going to give you a pass on the issue of anonymity. I called you out in a public meeting for how you misused the Council on the Dexter Citizens for Responsible Government on using a Dexter resident to identify a number of letters to the editor that were actually written almost entirely by you and one other person. So when I see anonymous on a set of data that has 8 people that are actually from Dexter voter registration rolls out of thousands, I'm suspicious. So I'm not going to give you a pass on that. I need you to come back and do some things. So you said in this last section, you want to be productive going forward. Here's some things that I would suggest to do going forward. First off, I think you have a responsibility to disavow conspiracy theories, call them out and disavow them. We are in an age when this seems to be okay. Conspiracy theories are okay. No, and that's part of this. One comment takes 100 times, 10 times as much to take care of. It's not just you gathered the data, is you didn't disavow it when you know that a lot of it is untrue. And that has cost a lot of work in this meeting. And we've even talked about doing more work to undo it. And that to me is squarely on your shoulders. Second, on the issue of the summary, I'm not willing to accept that it's just the fact that you did not initially intend to include all those anonymous comments. If you go to the government section of the summary and you look at the 4 or 5 bullets that start with number 2, you put those in the summary. So you interpreted those as being meaningful out of the broader set of data that you got, yet you provided them without any context. And there are comments in there that just, in order to respond to them, either for the council or for the staff, it just blows away the amount of time they've got for being effective. So if your purpose is to go forward and be effective and efficient, you've got to call that kind of stuff out and not include it, not just in the anonymous stuff. Don't include it in the summary, or contact the people back in the summary and save all of these people on this meeting the desire to call somebody up and clarify for them face to face. This is the school board's responsibility and this is the council's. If you're doing this as a solo act, you have a responsibility to correct it. Don't just plop it onto the lap of everybody else and say, okay, here it is. It's a huge amount of stuff that you're already submitting out there. And a lot of it is calling out for responses, which takes away from what staff and council can do, what I can do, that is productive towards the city. So I don't buy the history comment either. There's a lot of bull crap in that history section. I mean, in the summary section. Paul, I think, mentioned, or I'm not sure which person mentioned the issue of the survey validity and survey design and so forth. You're not the only person on this call who has survey design experience on it. I was a government employee, a federal government employee, responsible for strategic planning for a part of an organization that had $100 million plus budget. And strategic planning, I had to do surveys. So I have some familiarity with that. I have economics training and statistics training through the University of Michigan at the business school, the Ross School of Business. So, you know, when I look at this stuff, I go, whoa, man, statistics 101, survey design 101, and take accountability for it yourself. Don't just plop it out there. So going forward, I think that's important. And sometimes there's this quote from the movie Sabrina, which is, sometimes more is just more, Linus. Sometimes more is just more. When you throw that much stuff out there, and in it is all of this preposterous crap, I think you have a responsibility to stop. It's not just Sean's responsibility. You have a responsibility to say, what's my intent? I've heard what you say your intent is, but what's the impact? You throw that more out there and look what's happened. Just listen to what people have said and listen to the impact that it had on staff as expressed by Justin, on the council as expressed by Wah and others. There was an impact there, whether you intended it or not. So that's absolutely worth reevaluating going forward. Get rid of the waste, get rid of the inefficiency, get rid of the untruths, get rid of the unkindness, get rid of the things that are not going to do any good. They got to be FOIA'd, let them be FOIA'd, but you also have a responsibility to help inform those citizens. I've taken more than my time here, but man, I hope we're going forward. No Teflon here. I'm gonna let things slide off. This is part of being on the council. Responsibility to everybody. Listening and then changing.
Thanks, Jim. Ryan, we'll go to you next, and then Sanam will follow. Justin, if you can help me get Ryan on there, please.
Okay, hopefully I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
I'm going to rearrange my comments just in order to keep the momentum from Mr. McGarger's earlier statement. As someone who also has worked on survey design and worked on research, on qualitative research, there's a concept called positionality, where the researcher acknowledges what their position, how their identity and their previous stances and their public stances impact the results of their survey. One of the things that's really disappointing about this is that I think many of us have lots of experience knowing exactly Jamie's positionality. Councilperson Griffin's personality, position on various aspects of this plan, and to think that those didn't influence the people who received this this survey is just frankly not realistic. I think that if there are people who know you, and that's how you knew to contact them to ask for the survey, they likely also knew your positions and knew the kinds of things you wanted to highlight. Those are things that would go into the survey design. That's something you would have collaborators with to talk about that, and you would disclose that if you were writing a paper about, you know, how those things impacted you. If I was doing research on a school system that I was a graduate of, I would disclose that as, you know, part of my positionality and how that it may impact how people respond to my interviews. I also think that while I understand the desire to provide feedback that's anonymous for fear of reprisal, I don't have a lot of examples of actual reprisal. I've not heard from anyone about them suffering consequences for for their public statements. And I've been attending council meetings for a while, whenever I could. And I've attended a bunch of these other statements, and I don't think that there is that is necessarily a plausible reason to put this kind of information out purely anonymously. I spoke earlier about the difference between intent and impact. And while your intent may have been to give folks an anonymous voice, to be able to protect them and let them speak freely, as a council person, you also represent all of the rest of us. And being the person who submits this to the packet, as that kind of highlights, your role in this is to essentially launder those opinions and to put them here in the public sphere, where as mentioned, it caused real damage and harm for reputations, for trust, for ability for a community to come together. I have to now wonder personally about who in my community has some of these thoughts about Dexter and about who's moving here and who lives here and why. I don't have any recourse. I can't talk to that person. I can't reach out and find out how to make sure that they make sure that I can answer the falsehoods, that I can address those things as a citizen. All I'm left with is a feeling of emptiness and of some bitterness, because there's someone who has there are people who have lots of grudges and things that are upset, and they want to say them. People can go on any forum, on any on their own websites, on social media, in the paper, letter to the editor. There are lots of different forums for people to put out their thoughts, whether they be virtuous or not. But there is a difference when it's done, with the imprimatur of our government and of our municipal leaders. So everything that you all do represents all of us, and so that's going to be, in public. I agree that that if there's concerns about FOIA, and that's why you wanted to bring this forward, I think that's fine. However, now we're in a very difficult situation. There's no way to, if we redact it, the people who feel that everything that the city council does is crooked are going to take that as evidence of corruption or things, and it will continue those conspiracy theories. If we amend it, then people will just say that it was done under pressure, and so there's a corrosive kind of element to these kind of comments, and this is the fallout, is that we're not discussing the things that are relevant to our community, like walkability, sidewalks, crosswalks, crossing guards, streetlights, all things that we can and do regularly make progress on in this community. But we're kind of robbed of that opportunity because of some of these decisions. So my thought is that if we could consider amending the packet to include not just a disavowal of some of those opinions, but also a statement that a number of these were done, a statement that these are done anonymously, that many of them are not, considered fact. And while, it's not necessarily your opinions, Councilperson Griffin, I know that there's no one else for us to talk to. You're the person who brought it to us, and we don't have anybody else to respond to. There's nobody else for me to ask about how they got to some of these decisions and some of these comments. I think that I don't want to go on too long, but I definitely think that it highlights an issue around not civility, because I think civility is overused, but I think accountability and responsibility. And I think that it's perfectly fair to ask people to play by the same kind of rules of engagement that everyone else in the community plays by, which is, if you want to say something that's part of public record, you go on record. If you want to make your opinion known and you don't want it directly known by you, you could probably message or email staff and ask them to, ask them to include it in feedback. If you're worried about blowback from a specific council person, or some sort of imagined vindictiveness that, again, I have no evidence of. Or you can take to any other normal forum that lets you, seek your voice as your First Amendment right. But there's a difference in what's done in our name as government versus what people do on their own time and space. And I encourage us to try to find ways that that bring that bring citizen engagement forward, and bring citizen engagement forward to seek to solve real problems, but also to not give into the idea that everyone's opinions are treated as fact, and that a bunch of negative opinions can be said without opportunities for recourse or response, and that council has to represent all of its citizens, and that means that when facing some of these things, that you show some discretion about what is allowed to be part of our records, about what comes forward. As the person designing the survey, as a person doing the research, you have so much choice in those decisions. Every decision about what to include and what not to include, what questions to include, who to reach out to for the survey, all of those are editorial prerogatives, and they are all legitimately to be questioned. If we want it to be more reflective of the desire of council, then my suggestion is that all of council decide on how it wants to do citizen engagement. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Sanam? And then we'll finish with Cole.
Thank you, Sean. Before I start, I want to say that comments I would like to make are my comments as a citizen and a community member of Dexter for the last almost 5 years that I've lived here. And then I apologize because I am emotional, and I feel that this reading that survey was extremely difficult for me. So I try to put my thoughts in a good way. So Jamie, you came to Dexter in 2017, about a year or so after I moved into Dexter. And from 2018, you started your campaign of on a specific subject that came with it, your 2 years of attack of city officials. And that continued until, almost basically to the last meeting before the election that you were elected, with a statement you read at the city council that generated a lot of, I would say, sadness and also various comments from a lot of people. I approach things from the perspective of understanding and collaboration. So I came to your Zoom meeting of, meeting Jamie on your campaign page, and we had about an hour of conversation. I asked you if in the years you had been in Dexter, if you had tried to even get to know the city manager or any of the staff. Your response was no. I asked you whether you tried to participate in any community activities or any committees or anything. Your answer was no. You are asking us to agree that the survey is not your opinion, you generated it. But these are your opinions as well, and you made them very, very clear in the last 2 years. A lot of the attacks that were in the survey and bad things said about our city officials, you said them. So to me, saying that this is just what you generated, it's not your opinion, is false. In my meeting with you, I suggest that you need to apologize to Courtney and other city staff. You basically shrugged it off. You didn't come to this community to serve, to be part of a community. You came to this community with an agenda to run for a political office that will go from God knows where from here. That's the impression you left from whatever you said. Now, I actually have the live articles that you interviewed with in the last couple of years, all of them up. From the moment that you got into the city council, You want us to forget everything you have said and have a different approach, but that is not right. You posted your survey on Dexter Forum, open forum on Facebook. You have also before every meeting, you are posting the agendas and such for City Council, which I appreciate. What I don't appreciate is that you highlight the emails that you have included in the packet and the statements that you have made specifically, which a lot of it brings things back to the topics that you keep continuing and continuing. In my meeting with you, I asked you, if you are elected to the City Council, will you continue bringing issues up, things that are decided, voted on, and we are moving on? And you said yes. You said that you will be done. You appreciate you will follow the vote, and you will stop bringing issues back. That has not happened. You basically have been continuing to saying the same things. I, like many others who mentioned, do surveys. I've been doing surveys for many, many years for various profit and nonprofit organizations. There is a portion that can be public and there is a portion that can be private. In terms of names and who is submitting, those things can be asked and be specific that those will not be shared public. However, the way I see this survey, I don't know if one person submitted 5 times or there are you and a couple other people actually just responding. Because to me, a lot of the statements that were made were very, very similar to the statements that you have written and the statements that you have come to council and have said yourself before your election to council. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm feeling about this. And I think it's echoing a lot of, I second a lot of things that were said. And I think your message for the last 2-3 years have been the message of division. It was not a message of unity. Your message has been to attack city officials, city staff for the last 2 years. And then you're asking them to completely forget about it. You're asking them to think that that's not your opinion. And the survey that you have put out, when you posted it on Dexter Open Forum, I replied under it. So because it was not very easily seen that this was not a city official response. I did put a comment there that the city is asking if anybody has a feedback to share that through official channels. So I would say that I agree that citizen participation is really good. We want to hear from all people, but you in your capacity and what you have demonstrated in the last 2 years, putting this survey out is basically continuation of the rhetoric that you have been expressing for the last 2 years. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for your comments today and for participating. Cole, we're gonna turn it to you to wrap it up as the last person here.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I think it's disingenuous to disclaim responsibility for the responses on the survey. One just has to think through how somebody would have come upon the survey. They would have seen the solicitation, heard about the project. There's no reason to think these aren't the same friends and supporters. These comments are anonymous, but they obviously come from the anti-Avalon faction. And there's no reason to think that these aren't the unvarnished opinions that represent this faction, but that they won't scream at council in public with their names attached. It would beg her belief that these aren't the people who she solicited, and only now, after the damage has been done, is there any disclaiming of the slander. But there's been no actual apology to staff. I would like to hear the phrase, "I disagree with the charge that staff has acted secretively and corruptly." But there's no indication that the opinions about the staff aren't shared by Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks, Cole. Okay, I'm just gonna wrap it up. We've had a lot to say and to hear here today. We still have a lot of work to do in 2021. And the only way we're gonna get to do that is if we keep talking to each other and we keep being honest with each other. So let's try to work together. It's about 11:20 on a Saturday. It's supposed to be fairly mild. Everybody get some fresh air. Try to take a fresh perspective on things. I will work with Justin to get a doodle poll out there so that we can get some new dates, but we'll try to meet again twice in February and twice in March. And that usually leads us into our budget preparations workshops. So we'll be meeting again by virtue of what we normally do in April and May as we work towards the budget or through the budget. But I'll also try and take a longer look at workshops on other topics. I know there's some ones out there that we want to touch on, and I'm not trying to avoid those. So thank you for your time this morning and for your participation and your comments. Let's remember we're all one community, and we are together. We are one council. So.
Sean, are we getting paid the same amount that we usually get for those extra meetings?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
Paul.
you. Just want to check.
Hey, Paul, if you want, I can figure out how to, I don't know, maybe we can get a courier to run some donuts around or something.
Yeah, no, I don't need those. I had enough Christmas cookies and candy. I don't need any of those. Thank you.
Something. All right. Have a good evening or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody stay safe. Get your shots.
Yep, if you can. All right.